Hello!
Hello!
We'll give you a few moments for us to tell... Oh god, now I can't speak after all this.
Oh dear.
Please let us know if you can hear us and if it is understandable, because we've, as you can see, had to set up some of the older mics. We fear our lapel mics are slightly dead.
Back to these things like a vice on the head, really. They're quite tight, but I suppose there's something appropriate about that. And in some way, gotta get the truth.
Alright.
And it's very scratchy.
I assume that's my mic. As long as you can put up with it and you can hear us. Oh.
It doesn't sound like a usable quality, unfortunately.
Lottie is fetching the tech. We shall see.
We're working on it. Bear with us, everybody. Sorry for the troubles.
But we're excited to hear you're excited for early access.
That is some good, at least.
We shall pantomime until you can hear us again. Nothing.
We have one saying it's understandable. Oh, I'm fine.
Okay, so it is my mic. Olivia was offering her mic, Lottie. Okay, cool. I will fix my mic in a moment. In the meantime, would you, since your mic works, like to tell them what you've been working on?
I can certainly do that. And sorry to Jack of Smiles for not bringing in my trademark scarf. It is summertime here as much as London has summer, which isn't very much. Are we going to be doing the mic swap over now? Should I wait for that?
You can keep going. Just don't mind us.
Very good. I'll try to ignore all of the terrors going on behind the screen where I can see the chat. Hello, everybody. So yes, it's been another busy sprint for the writing team and for all the teams. We are going to be launching Sunless Skies into early access come, I think it's August 30th. Haley's giving me a thumbs up. That's good. Got it right. Know what would happen if I didn't. So yes, we're going in August 30th. Early access is going to be available on Steam for purchase. It's exciting. We're all very happy. And right now we are trying to make sure that all things are ready for early access. So we are going to be letting players go into the Reach for early access. This is one of the 4 primary locations where the game will take place. This is one of our regions, along with Albion, which is where London is now set up with the Clockwork Sun. Eleutheria, which is a region of chaos with a very sick, disturbed star. And, what's the other one? The Blue Kingdom, of course. The region where I suppose I say too much more on that, but it's a very strange place that London's trying to come to grips with. But yes, we're all very excited. The Reach, again, this verdant wonderland that London has thoroughly colonized, will be the first region available, and we're, I believe, going to have a fully playable version of the Reach. So all content there, with maybe a few surprises coming up, will be all there.
Hopefully you guys will be able to hear me now, although I'm trying to adjust it so you don't hear me too loud. But let me know if it's as scratchy or how it compares to what it was like before.
Hopefully it'll be alright. I guess we'll wait a few seconds and see.
It's always a guessing
meantime
game.
With interpretive.
Alright, we're getting the
dance.
go-ahead from Mac. We feel very professional now.
Mic is fixed. Happy days.
Yay!
So yes, we've been busy and very busy indeed. This past sprint, when working on Sunless Skies, I have mostly been doing QA work, so I've been going through testing first that the ports are completable, the ones I've worked on at least, and giving another pass over the pros to make sure it's nice to play through and not just a hurried bit of words. But no, it was all good. I had a good chance to polish everything.
Excellent.
And we're going to keep on doing that throughout the course of the month to make sure that players have something really special to come to when they come into the Reach and into the world of Sunless Skies for the first time.
Awesome. And I heard you mention the 4 regions while I was fixing the mic,
Yes.
but did you mention what makes the Reach different from the other ones?
As far as what particularly?
Yeah,
Is there something you have in mind?
It's sort of uh, environment or theme.
Okay. So again, the Reach is a more a verdant jungle. It's a place where the judgment has disappeared, and London has zipped in to fill that vacuum and set up its own colonies, brought in its own people. But already there's tension there, of course, in New Winchester and Port Prosper, throughout all of them. The Winchester War is raging in this area, and it's a question if London will be able to hold on to this colony now that it's set it up.
And in this sort of area, compared to the other, maybe more settled areas within the high wilderness, does nature pack a punch as much as
It's
other
hard.
inhabitants?
It's hard to say. In as much as how you mean nature, and I suppose I'm being pedantic, and I do apologize for that, but certainly you'll have the courser bees figuring quite prominently in the Reach, and a few. I think that's the most verdant-themed enemy off the top of my head. But the others will have their own flora and fauna, which may pose a threat to the player. So each Reach will have its own natural terrors to contend with.
Excellent. I'm sure everybody, especially after the previous podcast we've had about the chorister bees, will be very much looking forward to them. Slash having nightmares about them. Either way.
I've tried to back off from the bees, but every time I mention them, a little bit of that old proselytizer in me comes out. But I'm good now. I don't know if they'll each have their own bees, but I would certainly not mind if the bees took over all of the. Anyway, yes, Ken.
Sunless bees? Oh no, what have I started? It can go along with the other game that I made the other day, Sunless Tea.
Oh dear.
And in a way, I mean, obviously, we don't necessarily know if there would be bees in every region, but presumably there would be sort of like unique what we're calling agents, which are like the AI or non-player characters that you would meet.
So there are going to be a number which, of course, are common throughout a number of the regions. I'm not entirely sure how far that will go. I can't say too much. I don't want to give any wrong impressions. But yes, it's going to be very exciting to see all of the artwork come out, and I'm really excited to see how they wind up playing the different agents, the different enemies, ships you can encounter.
I think I saw a question that wasn't added to us that said, oh yeah, to what degree are the regions self-contained, or will we have lots of storylines hanging until more is opened up?
I think that as we go through, there may be more cross-pollination. I'm not entirely sure, but I know at least some content in London I've already gone ahead and written. When you get into Albion, you'll be able to visit the capital of the Empire, and I know that some of the content I've written there already is crossing over into what we've already written. And certainly the ambitions that the player plays through, which are their storylines that define their character and take them all throughout everywhere in the game, will have stories that cross over multiple paths.
Right.
But to the extent that the stories of ports will interact and intersect is right now difficult to say, but I've already, at least in my own work, left some room for expansion in a few other ports. So I think we'll be seeing some of that.
Nice. I think fans would definitely appreciate that. And I think that the way that Sunless Sea, Skies is set up compared to Sunless Sea in regards to the fact that Liam had showed sort of how the regions are set up as spheres that spawn, so to speak. And obviously some of them may be more starting out points and some further in the game. But I think that the new system we have will probably be set up for things like that. It's just how we get there through development.
I think so, and I think it's a point that content has been keeping in mind as it has gone along, or at least I know I have. I guess cross-pollination bees, I'm trying, everybody.
I also see the Clockwork Sun question, but I have a feeling we will just be very quiet about that. because we can't give away too much.
Yes. But no, I mean,
Also, I hope Olivia is not watching the chat because this would horrify her.
it's going to be very exciting, and I mean, I know, again, just speaking for myself, you know, if whenever I play a game and I come into a certain area I think is particularly interesting, and then go to another one, if there isn't some kind of melding between them, I always frown a bit, because I think it's such a rich opportunity to make the world a connected place, and it's something I think
Oh no,
we'll be
Olivia
able to
is
do.
watching the chat.
Oh well.
We've stolen her headset and watched set up puns. We're very sorry. I was also going to ask, so out of the Reach, or even all the ports you've worked on so far, not just the Reach, which one has been your favorite to work on so far?
We've only really worked on the Reach so far.
Oh, okay.
So I've again done a little bit of work on London, but only a few minor quests that you will be able to access through the hub.
Gotcha.
So the Reach by default is my favorite so far, but I'm very excited to see what goes on when we get into Albion. And from there it's a mystery, and I have a few ideas, but we'll see how the content continues to develop. I think it'll be very good fun.
Excellent. Are there any tips or things that you think people should look out for if they join us in early access? I know you're a bit more obviously content, so
Yes.
not so much gameplay, but is there anything
Well,
you're looking forward to them, testing out and seeing?
I'm going to be interested to see how a lot of our timers work, to be certain. We have many more timed events to sort of facilitate the fantasy of your traveling and things happening in correspondence to the calendar. I think that'll be tremendous fun. But as far as any tips for gameplay that I could give, I would say to make sure you... self-care is important. And you want to make sure your terror levels are well managed, as was the case in Sunless Sea. Here we rework the system in a way that I've just really been looking at only over the last few days. But every time your terror increases, you get a new condition level, so it's not an automatic death as it used to be. But the terror events that you are faced with, your nightmares, will become more frequent the higher your condition is, and if it does reach that 5th level and your terror does max out, that is the end of the line. But we'll have storylines playing out through there. Of course, you want to make sure you keep care of your crew. You want to keep their levels high enough. You want to keep yourself in with food and supplies, fuel. You don't want to run out, or it's going to be a bad time.
No,
Bad
running out
time.
of fuel and space is never good.
But the other thing I would say is just keep exploring. If you keep going from place to place, and if you plot your journey, and if you take the time to, as you're traveling, think about where you're going, what you're going there for, if there are any other stops you can make along the way, because a lot of the places, a lot of the ports are interconnected. They have stories in common, where you can go to one, maybe further another cause somewhere else. So I would encourage players to think of how they want to... really, I would just encourage them to just keep on exploring. I mean, that's what you're there for, is to keep furthering the world, and the only way you're going to do that is by going out and seeing what's out there.
Whatever we've put in there. Whether or not that may or may not be terrifying, but that's half the fun.
Terrifying and wonderful often.
Besides your lovely puns, do you have any other questions for Cash? Because I'm sure he'd be more than happy to answer them.
Some of them. I did not see the question about Eleutheria. How would the star be sick? How would it be sick? Well, I suppose it could get a cold, or it could come down with the mumps, chicken pox, polio. Didn't have a cure for that back in the day.
Very
So
true.
there are a lot of things that could go wrong with, problem with the fission that causes it to maybe explode and turn to a black hole, a little supernova fun, maybe old age and the desolation. Now I'm sure I've
Yeah.
said too much, and people are going to take my funny jokes as some kind of secret hints. They are not secret hints. I was just making fun jokes about a star having a cold. Don't take that as gospel. It will be. I have said too much, actually, after.
Yep.
No.
Chris will be after you now.
Well, sorry,
Although
Chris.
Olivia's much closer.
But no, that is something to be revealed, all in good time. Aside from the bees, what piece of content am I most excited for people to go through? Saw that wink. That wink was actually a secret cry for help. I signaled my secret handlers to extract me. They'll be coming through the big window here after the podcast to propel me out on a helicopter. I wrote a piece of content that I think Chris is in this chat, is that right?
I haven't seen
I can't tell if
him.
it was him. Are you Failbetter? Who's Failbetter? I can't tell. You're Failbetter, so I can't ask you. But I wrote a piece for one of the small London quests that I'm very interested to see how that goes down, but I don't have the clearance yet to say what that's about. But Titania, of course, is the port with the bees, somewhat famously, I suppose. That's where this whole bee madness started. But I'm interested to see how Palmer and Plinty's Circus goes down. That was a port that was originally pitched by Olivia, and which I had the joy to be able to write. Palmer and Plinty's Circus. I think I discussed this one of the last times I was on,
yeah.
but as a refresher, the circus is really quite run down. It's a sad place, but a place with dignity nevertheless, even if it is not the kind of circus you might want to attend, not because it's scary, it's not a nightmare circus with clowns that will eat you or
Always a
anything
plus.
like that. It's not at all the case here. It's a place of quiet, tired dignity and pathos, and I am interested in the human stories like that, and to be able to try and tell one in the Reach and in some of the seas, some of the skies, something that I was glad to do.
Yeah, sounds excellent. I'm sure that everybody will be racing through to see all the stories that they can as soon
hope
as we
so.
go into early access.
Yeah, and just be glad to explore. That's the thing is, every now and then things will change based on your actions. So just checking in now and then can really show quite a lot.
Definitely. Is there a circus in Submariner?
I don't know that there's a circus in Submariner that I can think of.
Nope, just Sunless Skies. We like to put our circuses in space. That is a good question.
Have I ever grown to loathe some text? Probably, if I went back and read it. But I haven't had that opportunity too often. I think oftentimes it's more how I would change a design rather than I would change a piece of writing, because of course the writing can always be better, and I try and take it as a positive when I look back in writing and see what a young fool I was. That I don't tend to hate it. I wouldn't have written it if I hated it. But I suppose that's not the point, is that it's something I love turning into something I hated. No, not yet. But there are a few sore regrets that I have of how I could have told a story and didn't. An opportunity I thought I had recognized but just didn't pursue, rather than a particular piece of writing that I'm just sick to death of.
I think too, because obviously it's not like, even though you write certain pieces of content, it's not just you working on that, because it then has to go through QA and content QA, and Olivia obviously is editing it as well, so it's not like you have to go through the same thing over and over again. We have
Right.
a team of writers that look at everything
Right.
and form it into what it becomes at the end. So that probably
Yes.
helps with that.
I mean, it certainly helps that we have a whole team. Everybody works on the editing process, on the QA process, and it's quite wonderful. Which tether tasting was it that showed a circus in the high wilderness? I remember, because I wrote them, there were 3 that showed the couple of captains that drove their train across the wilderness. I remember there's one about someone getting a tattoo and listening to jazz, and there's someone waiting for a letter. But those were the only ones I can remember, and I think those were all of them.
And then I saw another question up there about the port that was unlocked during Kickstarter, which I assume you mean the Royal Society port.
Oh yes, the Airy.
Which is definitely being worked on. I think Art has started working on it. I don't know if you guys have touched on it yet.
I believe that we are going to be getting to that in the coming soon. Of course we will, because it's a promised port for the Kickstarter. But I don't have those dates in here.
Definitely. We have been focusing, on creating the Reach, and now we're in the stage of sort of polishing the Reach and making sure it's ready for early access. And then from there, we'll be moving on to the other regions. So I assume that you'll be seeing more of that soon, especially since Art has started working on it. Cool. So I think thank you for dealing with the technical difficulties
Always.
this week and sharing
Happy to come on.
what they can look forward to.
Always happy to come on regardless of the technical difficulties. That's just the way of the beast.
Excellent. Next time we'll just have you sing, so we can set up all the mics
All right.
as like an interlude.
Very good. Grasping the knife is the one that shows the circus. I would have to go back and look. I don't remember, I fear. Things go by so quick. Anyway.
All right. If
I
you
will-
wouldn't mind telling Lesleyann that she can come on, that'd be
I will
great.
absolutely
And
do so.
try not to get yourself on the way out.
Is that what you're going to blame my death on?
I
My
will have
own
no
fault
part of
as
that.
I trip over.
Olivia
I
has
don't-
her own ways.
I didn't trip. It was a setup.
I don't think we do it right in front of the camera, at least.
That's the point. I get off here. Bye, everybody.
Olivia, I don't know what you mean. All right, so next we're going to have Lesleyann on, who is very excited to be here, and we get to show off a brand new Failbetter, which is always exciting for me as well. She can navigate. Here's your headset. I must warn you to be careful if you move your head around too fast, but otherwise you should be good.
Okay. Oh, there's the camera.
Oh, and Chris
can
is
see that
here,
now.
joined too. Yeah, so here is our Twitch chat. So occasionally people ask us questions, which we
Okay.
can answer for them. Lottie and Chris are also in the chat along with Olivia, answering what we cannot. Olivia is never innocent. I'll just start off with that.
It's true.
But so you have joined us as a QA, which is super exciting for us, especially as we're going into early access soon.
Yeah.
Why don't you start by sort of giving a little description of what your job is, just for anybody who isn't super embedded into the games industry stuff?
Oh, my job is to find all the books.
The best
A
part.
little bit more involved than that, but I'm going over all the new content that our writers, our tech team put in each week, and testing that it does what it should be doing, and it also doesn't do what it shouldn't be doing, if that makes sense. So checking, yeah, it works, but it also that it doesn't break around horrifically around that and work in ways that we don't really expect. Part of my job's also to give feedback on how certain elements of the game feel from like a player's perspective, and that's great at first when you first see a new piece of content, but then after a while it's like you play this over and over again, and you like I've seen too much of it now, and I can't see the wood for the trees. So it's good sometimes to be introduced to a new feature or a new piece of content kind of blind, without knowing exactly how it should work, so you can get like genuine feedback on this is amazing or no, this needs tweaking. So I'm going over everything that's in the game at the moment.
Quite a bit.
Yeah, there's a lot in there. I'm just starting to really realize that this is a huge game, and it's only a quarter of it. So
Exactly, yeah. I'm sure that you'll be like the pro at flying a locomotive by the time that we're
yes.
ready to launch.
yes, if we, I mean, I think there's probably quite a few tweaks to come yet. And at first I really wasn't the best at moving this locomotive around. And as a lot of players in the alpha keep reporting, they're like, oh, strafing, it's faster to strafe than it is to go forward.
And what is strafing, just for anybody
Strafing
who
is
doesn't know?
it's like the lateral thrust, so moving to the side, and it's awesome. And I like telling players, I'm like, shush, because that's helping me get around the game quicker. I want that to be fixed last, and we've just fixed it. So in the current alpha, it's a bit more balanced. It's slow, but now it's like, oh, I've got to learn how to move again, and it's actually, it feels much better at the moment. But yeah, I liked being able to zip around the game sideways really fast.
Especially when you're doing something over and over again, I'd imagine.
Yeah, definitely.
I know when I was trying to take some like video for GIFs and things like that, I obviously just have whatever, build the alpha is at, so I don't have any like special codes or the ability to like open it up within the program.
Right.
So yeah, I was going around and around just trying to find where one of the ports was so I could take a GIF of it. And at the end I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I have a vague semblance of what it must feel like.
I've also had this fear that at some point in the future, we're going to live stream it, and I've been thinking, maybe you'll ask me to do that, and it's like, if I look, if I'm crashing into everything like I was in my first week, I just couldn't handle this locomotive at all. I thought, that's going to look terrible. So I must be really good at controlling this thing.
That's really why we brought you on, just
exactly.
so that if we need to film anything, you can actually fly us through like in a decent and very impressive sort of manner.
That's my job role.
I saw a question. So, will Fall London ever hear news of the exploits in the high wilderness?
No. Well, I mean, for all the games companies I've worked for, exploits are something that we always keep completely under wraps. I would assume that would also be Failbetter's policy. I wouldn't ever like to reveal exploits. There are certain bugs and issues that we find that we talk about, and especially funny ones, but yeah, exploits, no. And I will find them all before it goes live.
That's another plus, really.
I did find one the other day, actually, and I won't talk about it, but I got super excited. And this was on, we all have a work from home day, and it was on the work from home day, and I was like, when I found this bug, my husband's like, he also works from home, he's like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, I found an amazing bug.
I'm so excited.
But it's been fixed now.
Oh, I don't think they meant those kind of exploits.
Oh, what kind of exploits?
So, presumably you mean whether or not somebody whether content between Sunless Skies and Fallen London would be connected back to Fallen London. But I have a feeling the answer to that is no as well.
Right.
But that would probably be more of a content question later on. But for now, Sunless Skies is a completely separate game. Obviously a spiritual sequel to Sunless Sea, but in terms of working on games, our focus is really to make sure that Sunless Skies is the best that it can be, so it's probably unlikely that anything would link between the games currently. But I won't promise anything. And you had said something that sparked something in my brain, and now I have forgotten it. That's what I was going to ask. So was playing Sunless Skies like a totally different experience for you, or had you played games similar to that before?
Well, I have played Sunless Sea. I've not completed it, which is probably sacrilegious to say.
Definitely not.
And yeah, there are some games similar that I've played before that are similar to the kind of games that Failbetter make. But it's also, in some respects, it is actually quite different to some of the things I've played. So it's interesting, and it's what am I trying to say? It's just a different perspective for me, and trying to really understand the world and make sure it's in keeping with what's already there with Fallen London and Skies. Because some things I see and I'm like, this makes no sense to me. But when I learn more about the lore and the universe and that's already existing, I'm like, oh, okay, right. So yeah, I think that was a very convoluted.
No, that's a great answer
To that.
I always wonder what it's like for somebody to come on and, start playing something that they, even though you have played Sunless Sea Sunless Skies is quite different. So
Yeah.
and there's so much content and so much lore that
there really is.
it would be pretty like impossible to understand everything anyways before you start and play.
And while there's still a lot to do on the game, there's so much that's in place already, and of course you guys have been working on it since last year, so I think this is either my 5th or my 6th week here, and it's kind of like getting to grips with this backlog of design knowledge and what the game is supposed to be, and it's really huge. So I've just been trying to play catch up and understand all these things that most people here probably completely take for granted because you've all been discussing it and working on it for so long. So yeah, I did have a few moments of like, what? How is this supposed to work? What is this supposed to do? But I'm getting there now.
And somebody has asked about your career path and how you came to Failbetter. That's up to you whether or not you want to answer that, but I'm sure that they'd be interested from a like getting into the games industry sort of point of view.
Well, I started working in the games industry in in 2012. I started working at Jagex in Cambridge on a game called RuneScape. And I actually got into it as a player support representative because I had a customer service background. And games have always obviously been a passion. So like, oh, that's a perfect combination right there.
Definitely.
And I think I'd been there 4 months, and I applied for an internal role as QA, and the rest is sort of history. Rose up the ranks there. I then moved to Oxford to a company called Natural Motion, and I worked there for a while. And then I decided to sidestep into software for various reasons, and I've not been totally happy with that. Software testing is great. It's when you're a gamer and you've worked in the games industry, it's just not as fun.
Of course. Well, how could it be?
Yeah. So it was kind of just a job, and I don't like that mindset. I always believe in that you choose a job that you love and you'll never work a day in your life. So I'm like, right, I want to go back into the games industry, but I want to work for particular companies, and I could not believe my luck when I saw this job come up. And I'm like, it's mine. So yeah, I applied. I've been here 6 weeks.
Excellent. And are there any like what would you recommend to people would be like good qualities to have or to invest in within themselves to be a QA? Because I think there's quite different viewpoints of QAing, and a lot of people see it more as like a way to step into the industry. But if you were really interested in that type of career path, what sort of skills or things do you think people should be invested in?
Yeah, a lot of people do use it as a stepping stone into the industry, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's a real awesome career in its own right.
Definitely.
So I wouldn't dismiss that and just be like, oh, I'm just getting my foot in the door, and then I'm going to be a programmer or an artist. And that's what I found. I mean, I've got a lot of interests in other areas of the industry, but that's one thing I actually love about QA is that you get to touch on all of those areas, and you get to work with every department and see the whole thing, which is awesome. Things to help you get in. I know it probably goes without saying, but a real attention to detail, good knowledge of games, being able to understand games from that perspective as a player, but also from a business side, development side, which is really hard. And if you're wanting to work for a particular company, so when I went to work for Jagex, make RuneScape, it's really tempting to know all there is to know about that game, and it's not always necessary. It's great, and of course it does help. But you can get too focused on like a player mindset within that one particular game, and then you can sort of get blinkered as to, at the end of the day, it's a product made by a company, and there are salaries to pay, and you know, if there's no money coming in, then there's no game being produced. So you need to be able to balance those kind of business needs. And I think a lot of people these days tend to sign up for alphas and do a lot of beta testing because it gets experience with finding bugs and reporting them.
Yeah, I would imagine the reporting process is definitely something to get down.
Yeah. And these days there are a lot of internships for QA and other roles within the games industry. So we'll always go for something like that. And there are so many courses online now for free to learn little bits of things like automation, any kind of programming, and all those kind of things help. You don't have to be a programmer to do testing, but it will only help your role and the entire team. So it's a good thing to look into. I think if I missed anything.
No, I think that was pretty
Long
fair. I
answer.
mean, obviously I can't speak for QA, but that sounded like pretty good advice to get going. So
Nice.
And in regards to the work you've been doing, getting ready for early access, what has been the most fun for you to test? I realize that may not be necessarily what everyone else may think is fun, because perhaps there's something you really enjoy digging into. But has there been like one particular thing that has really interested you?
That's hard. I mean, I love story. I'm always drawn to games that are really story heavy. So testing the actual content, I have to test it with that, like a functionality mindset. Like, is this doing what it should be doing? Is it going where it should be going? But then coming back to it and thinking of it as a player, and it's just such really good stories there already. So it's like, oh, this is actually so much fun. I'm having fun at work. So the story, the combat, and I need to do much more testing on the combat next week. But the combat is fun. At least I found it fun. Now that my locomotive's not spinning all over the place. So I'm enjoying that. I think those two things stand out at the moment.
Excellent. Very good. Do you think a bug... let's see.
What's this?
Possibly, but we'll get back to you on that one. And I suppose on the flip side of that, has there been any piece that has been really tough to crack yet? Or are we still kind of at a... Obviously, you said you have only been here 5 or 6 weeks, so I imagine a lot of that time, like you said, was learning just about everything first before really getting into the QA portion for Sunless Skies. But is there anything that you think will take a while, or presumably combat?
I was just about to say, at the moment I think combat, because and I'm looking at I have a few debug tools which are amazing. I'm looking at getting a few more, and yeah, at the moment it's been hard for me to find beasties to destroy. So looking into getting a few more tools to help with that. So that's been, as fun as it is, when I finally find something to kill. It's been a little bit frustrating, but it's kind of, you just have to combine that with the rest of your testing. It's like, I'm going over here to do this. Oh my god, look, there's a Tackety Scout, and off you go to destroy it. So yeah, that's been a bit frustrating. Oh, I can catch that.
Yes, it's hard to be interpretive while we're here. A Medal of Honor, yeah, that would be good. Has anything humorous happened since you have started testing?
A few things. It's probably not that funny, but I saw something the other day with I think it was the Reach Marauders. So my one of my debug tools allows me to zip around the game to these ports really quickly so that I don't have to travel forever to test something. And as I spawned above this particular port, I think it was a Reach Marauder, but something just shot across the screen really fast. 2 things, actually. And one went straight across, and then at a 90-degree angle, another one went phew, like that. And I didn't have my screen recorder rolling. So the only thing I got was a quick screenshot. And I'm like, what was that? Moved like a bat out of hell.
Actually, now that you say that, I think I saw that when I was trying to get a GIF thing, because I was like, did I just hallucinate something?
Yeah, and it just, for some reason, it really made me laugh. But I do need to investigate more into, it's going to be really hard to reproduce, but I'm like, is this a bug, or is it because of the debug tools that I've been using? Because sometimes they can have, unforeseen, effects. And what else? I'm sure there was a bug that I found amusing the other day. Oh, I can't remember at the moment, but if I think of it, I will.
I'm always quite keen to share those because I think that's one of the more fun bits of marketing things that I can share. I know when we were beginning to test, I think it was the bees movements. That was quite funny as well, particularly when you spawn like a lot of them all in the same area and see how they react to things. So I'm sure we'll see lots of stuff like that as we continue on.
Yeah, definitely. Oh no, that's it. Again, it's probably something that's not actually that funny. I just found it really amusing. One of the weapons has a particular effect. So a lot of our players will notice at the moment there's a little bug where your weapons can actually damage you in certain situations, and it's like, just suicide. But there's also in certain situations, one of them, for a reason I don't understand yet, it will just accelerate your vehicle really quickly. It's just kind of really fun to just zip around going, whee!
Excellent. So as long as it doesn't damage you at the same time. So I'm sure it's fine. You can decide whether or not you'd like to answer the question about your tattoo.
Where's the question?
The tattoo on your left shoulder.
That one. I still can't find the question. Where's the question?
Impressible, irrepressible. Right under Chris's last thing.
What's the tattoo? The tattoo, I don't know if you can see that well. The tattoo is of 2 elephants, a mama and a baby, and it's a watercolour galaxy tattoo. You won't be able to see the stars in there.
But it is
just
amazing.
Looks like a massive
I can vouch
colour
for
there.
it.
So yeah, that's quite new. That one.
I really like the watercolor stuff as well. I'm jealous because I only have one tattoo and it's very small. So
time to get more.
I know, right? Maybe after Sun of the Skies, I can do something oriented. So unless you guys have any other questions, I think we'll be ending it shortly because due to the microphone stuff, I think we've gone on a bit longer than we normally do, and there will be plenty to share next time. The closer we get to early access and stuff. But I'm glad you guys got a chance to meet Lesleyann, who's awesomely a new part of our team, and we're very excited to have you.
Thank you.
We couldn't have
excited to be here.
Had you join at a better time, although I'm sure that was orchestrated on purpose. I just have no dealings on with the tech side of the room. Cool. So I guess we will bid adieu for now.
Cool.
And Lottie behind the camera can shut us down. But I will see you guys 2 weeks from now. So thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Bye.